you need to kind of de-brainwash yourself from what most people are brainwashed towards, and that is to invest in assets for appreciation. So most people, when they have excess money or they think of investing, they think of, how they can buy something low and sell later when it's high. Everything you do should be about what you can have some sense of control over and what cash flows for you. That's the cherry on top if there's appreciation.
Hey, what's up? It's Jason Wojo. Welcome to the Lifeonaire Show. I am joined by my Polish co-host, Polish Peter, on here. And on the Lifeonaire Show, we help people make more, work less, and create awesome, amazing, abundant, incredible, insert your own adjective here, lives. What's up, bro?
Insert your own what?
Adjective, remember that?
Adjective,
did you guys
yes.
have adjectives in Poland?
Well, sure. Yes. Yeah, we have them somewhere. When this is, English, for some of us, adjective is like, okay, all right, whatever that is. But okay, let's keep going.
Let's do it. Listen, we have Martin Saenz on today, man. This is an awesome interview. Like, here's a guy who had a government contracting business, a multi-million-dollar government contracting business, decided to get out, decided to go into decided to focus on more passive investments and cash flow. And he's going to share with us some of the lessons and stories through that journey.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting conversation because it happens to be at this particular juncture where we're at as far as the economy goes and things like that. And he's talking about loans and creating notes and things like that for a passive income model. And I think people should be focusing on more of a passive income.
Yeah, man, this is a great interview. A super nice guy, very successful. Let's go right now to our interview with Martin Saenz. Martin, what's up, man? Welcome to the Lifeonaire Show.
Thanks for having me on, Jason.
Dude, I'm super excited. We were just talking before we began. We have some mutual friends, which is super cool, and it is such a small community. And you have a really interesting story of you had this government contracting business, which, by the way, like, man, hats off to you, because I've heard so many things. Like, man, like everything is like hurry up and wait, and you have these deadlines and 1,000 other competitors for these bids and proposals and RFPs, and like, so you are a legend, man. And so actually, I'm curious. So, like, you transitioned, first of all, you started that business, right? You and your wife. What was that like? And then tell me, like, how that progressed to the point now, like, where you're basically, you run other companies, you help other people with their investments, you have some funds going on. Like, it sounds like a very interesting transition.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. And as far as government contracting goes, if you really want to put yourself through torture, then you start a small business and with the sole focus of selling to the federal government on a prime level. So that means that you are the direct client to the federal government. And so, yeah, I mean, just 3 years of just kind of getting that off the ground and is what it took. But it's definitely a tough business selling to the federal government. Half of your work is working on the bureaucratic side, the administrative side, and the other half is the actual work. And you did miss one point about selling to the feds, and that is there's about 20 people that need to approve just about everything that you do.
Dude, and so that is so true. I've heard that. I have some friends in the industry that used to work in DC and all that stuff. And I'm curious now, though, like, so you start this business and it got to a sizable, like, income. Mm-hmm. You had it was a real business. It wasn't some tiny little thing. It was like a real business. Is what made you decide to get out of that? Was that just the bureaucracy, the troubles of dealing with the government? Like, what was it that actually, like, started you on this path? Well, I don't want to say started you in the path of entrepreneurship, because you started this business, but you migrated out of that sector into something different. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my wife and myself, our intention was always financial freedom. When we first became a couple in 2004, And, we read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We went to real estate seminars. We did the whole educational circuit, if you will. And we landed on starting this small business. And what I found over the course of years is my wife and I, it was a real grind. There was lots of travel. There was weeks away from being from home. And even though after we started really taking off in '08, it took till about '08 we started making some money and getting into good contracts. Then we started buying some real estate property, starting with the building that we occupied our business out of. And so at the time it was the financial crisis coming out of it, and we found someone willing to sell a building they own free and clear with seller financing, with only, I think we put 10% down at the time. And then the next month we bought a neighboring building that he also owned with 10% down. So that just kind of started the real estate play of things. But all in all, what we realized after accumulating some properties about 2012, that it was too taxing. It wasn't the way we wanted to go. It was too much that we were putting out to receive active income, as good as the active income was. So we sold that business. We started having children. We have 4 children now. And we said, we're going to go on a different path where we feel we can serve more people as well as produce more income that is less active, if that makes sense.
So talk to me about that, man, because a couple things strike me as interesting about that. Is number one, you went right into commercial, which seems fairly uncommon. Like most people are starting off with the single family homes and, it's $100,000, $200,000 these days, whatever, 3 or 4, but you went right into commercial. And so what was it about those deals and the way that they were either structured or the way you ran them that made it so active? And is that something that you see a lot of? Like it's just piece and parcel to that kind of investment?
Yeah. So, just like with starting the small business, you can sell to anyone and there's low hanging fruit always. And so that's important from a cash flow perspective. But we wanted to do something bigger, and to do that, more challenging, higher barriers to entry, and that is selling to the federal government. Even though they are the largest buyer of goods and services in the world, they are one of the most difficult entities to get and go into bed with, especially on a prime level. So we kind of carried that same philosophy towards real estate, and we said, well, we're going to start with, first of all, what we need, and that is a building to operate our business out of because we're growing, but also we're going to start at a more sizable level because that's going to advance us further.
Gotcha. And so you get into these first 2 commercial deals, and so tell me what that was like. Were they were more work than you expected, or they just weren't as profitable as you expected?
No.
Or
Oh, no. I saw them as an annuity play. We also started buying some townhouses and single family homes as well, and some other industrial spaces. But what I found with those is that the cash flow didn't meet our financial aspirations. And so the workload was fine from self-managing those properties. That was fine, but it was a slow grow. So in other words, we didn't raise any capital. We didn't bring on OPM and all that. We closed out on a government contract, got a lump sum amount of money, and then put it into a property with putting 10, 20% down. And we kind of continued that model over time. And so it's a great slow build. We built up, $10 million worth of assets in, a few years. And so it was very profitable. But I'll tell you, I've been selling those properties now. Now I'm in Sarasota, Florida. And I've been selling them with seller financing. So that I'm really happy about because I'm creating notes out of all those properties that we bought years ago. But that fits more into my model now. But yeah, that's kind of was a thought process.
It's so was the whole game for you, the whole play for you the whole time was cash flow?
Yes. Cash flow from a passive perspective.
Okay.
So in other words, put in a certain level of effort for active income and then snowball as much of that into passive income producing assets as possible, which I found over the course of time actually motivates you to increase your levels of performance to generate active income. So they kind of feed off each other. And that's how I see my whole world is not just cash flow, but what I'm doing for active income. It's what's the seesaw at the playground, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So like what I'm doing for active income, increase that and then passive goes up. And then all of a sudden your active level goes up and then your passive goes up and then just kind of all the way to the top, if you will.
So you found that to be like, because I think one thing I see some people try to do is go right into passive, like, because it's so alluring. People are like, oh, I just want the passive income, the residual income. But it sounds like from your experience, like do you need both and do they feed each other? You find that's a valuable arrangement?
Yeah. So, you need to have your financial house in order before even answering that. So it's
Okay.
what your situation is. It's, when I talk to folks and whether they're employees, we have 25 employees for our here working at our company, whoever I'm speaking to, and they ask me for a suggestion, I always say, do you have your financial statement up to date? So, what that means, income, expenses, assets, liabilities, and then if you have it up to date, do you maintain it up to date, at least on a weekly basis? And are you reviewing it with yourself and loved ones and so forth on an ongoing basis? And then if you're doing that, which probably 90% of the people are not doing, then if you're doing that first initial task, if you're generating that good habit, then you start breaking out your active income and your passive income that's coming to you in your income statement. And even if your passive income zero and your active income is 5,000 a month or 10,000 a month, where you're starting from. Then you start generating passive income goals. And then you have a strategy for breaking off a percentage of all your active income that feeds into passive income investments that will feed you towards achieving your goals from a passive income perspective.
Gotcha, man. So I want to, you said a lot there that I want to unpack for people. So the first step, it sounds like, is really to develop the habit of knowing where you are financially, looking at your balance sheet, your income statement, and then monitoring it, probably to get a temperature on like how you're doing. And then from there, let's say somebody has that. They're like, okay, I've been doing this, I'm getting the hang of it. And now I have active income coming in. Do you have, and this is a very broad question, so it might be very hard to give an answer, but like, how do you start that process moving towards more passive income? Like, is it just peeling off whatever you don't spend on your living expenses and as much as you can? Like, do you have any recommendations for people because I think, listen, man, so many people are stuck on the hamster wheel, right? Where they're making, maybe they're even making great money, but it's like, it's all active. And then if something happens to them or if there's a downturn, they're really, exposed. And so like, how do you start that ball rolling towards more passive investments?
So, that's
a hard one, dude.
It's an incredible question. It's an incredible. So my first gut response is that you need to kind of de-brainwash yourself from what most people are brainwashed towards, and that is to invest in assets for appreciation. So most people, when they have excess money or they think of investing, they think of how they can buy something low and have it and sell later when it's high. Wall Street or real estate property or what have you. And so just kind of putting that aside. So nowhere in kind of what I explained with my financial statement, keeping it up to date, active, passive income, was there anything about appreciation? And so that should always be, and that's a Kiyosaki principle, right? That's the cherry on top. If there's appreciation, everything you do should be about what you can have some sense of control over and what cash flows for you and how it cash flows, active or passive. And so how someone should start out of the gate is just kind of just saying, dedicating themselves to building passive income in their life, and then starting to research that. That's kind of the first thing. You know that you need 20,000 a month in passive income. So you start researching, what industries am I familiar with? What industries are important to me morally, or what have you? And then how is their cash flow produced in those industries? And you don't really have to go far. You can go into Facebook groups in certain industries. You can go to conferences, you can do meetups, what have you, and you will find successful people in whatever area of expertise or whatever area you're looking at. And these people will have methods by which they develop passive or monthly income. And then you need to learn from those people.
And I think a lot of people get stuck there because there's so many different options. They're like, well, do I want commercial properties? Do I want a solar farm? Do I want to do single family homes? Do I want to do Airbnbs? I see people get overwhelmed at all the choices. And I like what you said. So like, what do you have? What do you know about already? What do you have some sort of like moral connection to, or like you feel passionate about? Do you have any other advice for people that are trying to discern between the different options out there? Is it, and I guess is also, which of these, did the numbers make sense based on this asset class too? Any other tips for people that are stuck there?
Yeah, it's to me, it's all about anchoring. So, you take a boat out and you want to start fishing, you anchor out, right? And you make sure the anchor is planted on the ground and on the bottom of the sea. And so that way, when the wind blows or what have you, that you're going to be positioned to not move much. Most people financially, I find that, they're not anchored out. And so the reason why they're hopping here and there is because they're just going with how the wind's blowing, which is the opposite of control, right? It's being controlled. And that's just it. I mean, you have to go and you have to make certain decisions in your life. And it all starts with your financial statement. I can't help anyone. And I'm not a financial planner, just so you know. I mean, like, I had an employee come in my office the other day. Hey, can you help me get my finances in order? Great. Well, do you have a financial statement? Here's a template. I have a template. It's an Excel spreadsheet. You just fill it out and the numbers don't lie, and then just keep it up to date. Oh, no, I don't want to do a financial statement. That's not what I'm looking for. Are there books I can read, this and that? I'm like, I can't help you. I can't help you because this is all I know. I can only give you what I know based on what's worked for me. And that is starting with your financial statement. That's my anchor.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's funny, man, because like as you're saying that, I'm thinking of like, I'm totally picturing Karate Kid where he's like wax on, wax off, but and they don't realize how valuable it is until they start moving down that road, because that's, especially as you start developing a portfolio, how much more important is it at that point when you really got to keep on top of the numbers, like, right? And so you're developing this habit that's going to serve you throughout all of your investing career.
It's your measuring stick too, like what you're saying. How do you evaluate, as you mentioned?
Yeah, right.
Measuring stick.
You got to know how to do that. And so tell me a little bit more about so you started off the commercial buildings, and then you expanded. You mentioned this as well. You kind of alluded to it. Where did this go for you, and where is it now?
So in 2013, after we sold the government contracting company, then we had our first child. He was 1 year old, and we said, okay, well, what am I going to do next? I had some rental properties. I was landlording, as I mentioned, and those are all fine. Those are all leased up. And so I went to a real estate investment club, a RIA, and I ran into a note investor. So it was one of those trainers, they show up at the monthly RIA, and they do their whole show and sell a 3-day workshop. And so I did the 3-day workshop, and I'm like, wow, I can buy mortgage loans that are going to pay me, and I don't have to have any of the headaches that surround landlording. And so I read every book I could on it, and I went and spent about 240,000 buying 10 mortgage loans that are non-performing. So the idea is you buy the non-performing mortgages, homeowner hasn't made a payment in a few years, you buy it at a deep discount, you get it, and then you exit out through the property or through the homeowner. You exit through the property as a deed in lieu, or you foreclose on the property, or you exit through the homeowner with a loan modification or a payoff. I mean, you do have the house, right? I mean, you can take back the collateral. So it's very secured in that way. But what I found is out of the gate was lesson learned is that you get what you focus on. So what I was focused on was from a real estate investor perspective, from a landlord perspective. So I ran due diligence as a landlord would run due diligence, focused on the collateral, not the homeowner. So I ended up getting back a lot of the properties, unfortunately, all across the Midwest, at the end of the day. But there was a few cases where I was able to get a loan modification in a deed in lieu, where I was able to flip the property for seller finance deal, where I was able to see the light, if you will. And I'm like, wow, long-term streams of income coming in, truly passive, where people are stroking checks. I don't have to talk to anybody. I don't have to fix anything. They just make a payment every month. And I said, that's my model. Plus, I'm keeping them in their home, providing a home, or in some cases, providing a home for someone. I'm like, everybody wins. I found what I was looking for.
Man.
So can you give us an example what that looks like? Because someone who's listening on the podcast here might be like, well, yeah, I don't know what does that mean?
Well, let's even back up before that, Martin. Just explain what a note is, because not everybody, people are familiar with the term mortgage, but not necessarily note.
Sure. So when you are looking to buy a home and you need to take out a mortgage, you may go to your local bank and fill out a mortgage application, and they put you through the underwriting, they approve you, you go to closing, and you sign a promissory note. So that is an agreement between you, the homeowner, and the lender that says, I'm going to borrow this amount of money, given this set of terms, interest rate, amortization schedule, monthly payments, etc. And what you also sign is a mortgage or a deed of trust, which ties that promise to the property in the form of collateral. So what happens is, in some cases, people lose their job, or they have a health issue, or they get a divorce, and they can't make the payments. So a bank, in that case, over time, some banks will roll those up and sell them off in bundles called tranches into the secondary mortgage market to a hedge fund or another lender at a discount. So you may have a mortgage where someone owes 100,000, but the bank is going to sell it to you at 20, 30, 40,000, even though 100,000 is owed. So our company, we can buy those, and we can make connection with the homeowner and work out a payment plan to keep them in their home, one that's sustainable to what their situation is. So then that way, if you don't give them a plan they can afford, they're not going to maintain it. And so we treat all the homeowners with compassion. We treat them as our customers that pay our bills. So we treat them top shelf, and we give them options. We help them in every way possible get back on their feet. And it creates long-term cash flow streams for our company. And to date, we have over 1,000 mortgages. We have a private fund my partner and I own with no investor capital that has about 35 million in mortgages. We have the income fund, that has it's a $50 million income fund. We have about 85 investors in there now. And we have another fund that's closed off as well. But we're able to be a service to these homeowners that needed help at some point, and we're able to be a service providing monthly passive income to investors. And by the way, my partner and I are the largest investor in the BQuest income fund with a few $1 million in cash. So we are living what we're preaching, if you will.
So let me just go back for a second and make sure I'm connecting all the dots. So the bank is like, hey, I'm not collecting on this mortgage. I want to get something rather than nothing. We're just going to sell off these non-performing notes, and non-performing just means the homeowners are not paying on them. And so we're going to give you a discount. And if you collect the money, great. If not, it's your problem. So you buy it for 20, 30 grand, whatever. What are the typical discount rates, by the way, on those packages? Are you getting them at like 50% on the dollar, 20, 30?
It used to be significantly less, but home values used to be less as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can buy mortgage loans, 30 cents to 80 cents on the dollar.
Okay.
Depending on the quality of the paper.
Got it. And the quality of the paper means like how good that asset is that it's tied to?
Well, how good the collateral is, yes,
okay.
But also the homeowner and their ability to pay.
Gotcha.
There's also a factor in. So, recall back when I first bought mortgage loans, I was just focused on the collateral, which is why I got back the collateral. But when I got more sophisticated, I started looking into who the homeowner was and their ability to pay and get back on their feet. So I had a good sense of that before buying the mortgage loans. So that made it easier if I was buying the right loans to make a connection with the homeowner and work out an option for them that works for them.
Gotcha. And so let's say you bought a loan and I know you said you bought them in a bundle, but you buy a single loan in this example. And so you buy it for 20 grand, and then you essentially are trying to make that mortgage whole again. Mm-hmm. And so the balance doesn't decrease for the homeowner. You're just kind of changing the terms, like, hey, it's going to be this much instead of this much, or we're going to space it out or lower the interest rate. Is that kind of how you modify a loan typically?
Yeah, we can do some concessions to help make the plan affordable for the homeowner. Oftentimes what we find out is since it's been 3-4 years, the homeowner's remarried. They got past the health issue. They got their job back. I mean, they're not going to be unemployed forever, hopefully. and so people's circumstances, they just hit a low point. We all can relate to that, and we're sympathetic to that. And but also too, we find that a lot of times time does cure whatever situation they were going through. And a lot of times they're back on their feet. So we have now that whole conversion of non-performing to performing occurs in our private fund. Okay. So our income fund only buys in re-seasoned mortgages that have been modified and are paying and have been seasoned over, good pay history over the past few years.
Gotcha. And so you've essentially figured out a way you're using funds to buy the non-performing notes. And then once you turn them around, and the term you use, I guess, reseasoned, that's the term. Mm-hmm. and then you have other investors that are like, hey, we'll buy these because, it's more predictable, more consistent. Mm-hmm. We don't want to deal with the potential, like, who knows what's going to happen with a non-performing note. That's awesome, man. And so, yeah. This is super cool. And so you're helping investors, you're helping homeowners, you're helping the bank get out of their issues. I mean, that's awesome. So is this something, are notes and kind of what you've done possible on a small scale for somebody who's like, you know what, I'm inspired by Martin. Like I don't have like millions of dollars and I don't have all these connections with other people that have that kind of money. Can they benefit from what you're doing at all in any kind of smaller form?
Yeah, I mean, I've written a few books. Note Investing Made Easier is the most popular one, and so it's really a how-to do this business. Now, with that said, there are elevated levels of regulation that didn't exist when I first got started. So we have a full-time compliance effort that goes around what we're doing. There's licensing that is just more prevalent state by state. So there are more risks involved. And so my only recommendation, if someone does come out and do this on a small scale, is that they have to scale up in short order. They have to move it from an investment from a novice thing to a business model in short order to protect themselves from state, federal, local regulators, along with just some of the other pitfalls that weren't as prevalent, 10 years ago.
Would you now, given all this extra regulation now and oversight, would you do the same thing now if like you were just starting off right now, or would you choose a different vehicle?
I think if I was just starting off now, I would probably move more towards the income fund, income fund where I'm just buying in reperforming mortgages, because there's a lot less risk involved in buying performing mortgages than non-performing.
Gotcha.
Then I would have probably, we're also, we just opened a fund and closed it to raise 3.5 million to buy a medical office building in Houston, a 60,000 square foot medical office building. And so I probably would have moved more into commercial funds as well as performing mortgage funds. But the non-performing's been good. It's been it provides a great service for homeowners where nobody has provided them a service prior. They've just been flipping the paper for money. They've been a transaction in most cases to hedge funds and lenders, whereas we actually get them back so they can actually pay. We only do fixed rate, fully amortized loans here. That's a mandatory, because I want the homeowner to be able to pay off this loan at some point in their life. Right. And that's very important to me from a financial perspective.
I mean, it's something you could feel good about, right? Like you help them achieve their goal of home ownership and weren't like predatory in any way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You got to treat if you do business the right way, you're going to do well in this industry. And so you don't get greedy. You don't need to.
Right. So, and by the way, speaking of your books, I did see you have a book called Cash Flow Dojo, which is super cool. Like, I love that title. That's a great one.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm actually overhauling it now. I was in Jamaica last week with my wife, and I spent every morning just working on it. So in about 2 months, I'll have the next revision on that, and I'm really happy with what I'm able to kind of pour into that, because I'm able to really hit home on the need for individuals to work on multiple streams of income, as even dual income working families is not cutting it right now with all the external elements that are hammering at everyone on a daily basis.
So speaking of that, man, I'm curious, like, you mentioned, multiple streams of income. Do you feel that real estate is the most viable and the favorite, or do you have other ones that you recommend people also look into in addition to real estate?
I do. I think real estate's where it's at. Tax advantages, cash flow, it's proven itself from an appreciation standpoint, even though that shouldn't be the main focus of buying real estate. That's how a lot of people get caught poorly, including Wall Street, right? All these guys are going to be liquidating soon. BlackRock and, all these guys that bought up in Arizona and Austin, Texas, they're going to be, it's going to be coming due soon, and the for sale signs are going to be flowing. But with that said, it's just if you focus on the cash flow, that should be kind of the first and foremost. But I don't think you need to be a mom and pop landlord or a mom and pop flipper to really get into the real estate game. I mean, I found it true with the mortgage note side of things, but you do need active income at some point to pour into passive income investments.
So somebody that, for instance, you're saying that somebody who wants to get a note, for instance, can just buy a single note or two, or just a handful of them. Is that what you're saying? Or did I misinterpret that?
So right now at this point, there's really no retail market for note investing. It's the same as, there's not many houses available at the auction block for pickup from flippers. And it's the same with the mortgage note side. The economy's been running overinflated, too hot, too much money circulating for too long. And so all the deal flow has moved upstream. Now, that's not to say, when this whole thing goes and, there's a lot of people that think it's already in motion of going. I'm one of those that there's going to be a new day where there's going to be a retail market again. And I'm banking on that.
And so do you think, and so actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Do you think that, so for people that, let's say they get those habits down with the financials, should they kind of wait on the sidelines and just learn right now? Like, do you think it's not just the right time to jump in and just do their research and be poised for when there's a shift? Or do you think they can still get going now with actually, looking at some investments?
Well, I don't think anyone should be focused on the macroeconomics of it all or shifts or I think the focus should be on building your foundation, building your anchor. I'm reading a good financial literacy book with my kids right now, and it talks about a fruit tree, and the fruit of the fruit tree is the passive income. So one should grow a fruit tree, but live off the fruit, not the fruit tree itself. So you don't cut down the fruit tree when you want to get a meal. And so the focus should be internally on how you can be the best version of yourself financially through your financial statements, through dialogue with whoever is involved with you, your husband, wife, whomever, and getting yourself in order, and then finding your area of expertise and researching. That research should always be kind of first and foremost. And there's money to be made no matter what the market's doing.
Got it. Man, I'll tell you, I love this topic. I think it's so important. I love what you've done, man. And especially I like to see when people kind of progress through stages of it not just being about themselves anymore, but now how can I help other people? And I think that's a super important key to success and you know what I mean? Long-term fulfillment. And you've managed to do that, my friend. And it's awesome. How do people find out more about what you're doing? And if they want to just either buy your books or see what you're doing for your funds, how do they learn more?
Yeah. So on the books, you can just go to Amazon.com and punch in my name, or reach out. You can email martin@bqfunds.com. I'll be happy to send you the Excel spreadsheet template for the income statement that I recommend just as a starting point. And then you'll grow. You'll use that initial basic template, and then you'll trick it out over time. But that's a good starting point. So martin@bqfunds.com. You have a general question, you can reach out. It doesn't have to be related to the income fund. To me, that doesn't matter. If someone has a question, I'll be happy to help.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for sharing your time with our audience in the Lifeonaire show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Dude, that was cool, man. I love hearing success stories like that. And I think it's just, here's a guy who he makes things happen, right? And he thinks like an entrepreneur, a business owner. And at some point he made the realization that he doesn't, the active side of the business is kind of just, not exactly what he wanted. And he starts investigating cash flow. And so and passive investments. So he starts going down that path, and he's successful at that too. Man, I think this is one of the things I've seen with people, man, is people that are successful can I think they can be successful in anything really. They have some sort of inner trait or quality or characteristic that they just have, they just have it. And I think it can be developed too. But it's really cool in this case to see him in the scale he's come to with this of like helping all these other investors, helping the homeowners, helping the banks, even, not that the banks need or deserve help, but it is what it is. Right. And so he's able to kind of like just wrap it all up into this nice little package with a bow on it.
Okay. Can I talk now?
Yeah, go ahead.
No. So, here's the thing. You talked about some people have this in them to be able to be successful at anything. I think, I don't know if you mentioned it during the particular episode, but you mentioned it before the podcast started with the first business when he was going with the governmental. I think he started with his wife in his business in the basement of his house.
Yeah,
and here's the thing. It takes perseverance, I think, resiliency, and keep moving forward, taking action that makes a lot of this stuff happen. Because think about it, he's got all the funds right now. He's looks like very successful, but at some point he didn't have, one fund. He didn't have one mortgage.
Yeah.
He had to start somewhere, right? And I think what happens a lot of times for people is they look at someone like Martin here and they're like, well, but he's got this and this and this. But here's the thing, you start somewhere. And that's what he was talking about on this particular episode of, someone who's just starting out, just take action. Educate yourself. That's important. But also you got to look at your financial picture, set your foundation, what your anchor is going to be. And once you do that, based on that fishing analogy that he used, you just go start fishing.
Well, man,
and you sit there. Think about when it comes to fishing, what do? You sit there for hours looking for that fish, and you
catch nothing for hours, and all of a sudden you get the big bite, right? You just have faith in the process. Like think about it. Think about if you were trying to fish and you're like, oh, I'll cast over here, I'll cast over there, I'll cast over there. We're gonna do it. You're not going to catch anything, right? You don't even let the hook sit there long enough for the fish to eat it or to bite it. And
you got to know where to set the anchor.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing too, is like, I think one thing that I like you said is like, you start where you are. He started this business. First of all, let's back up to his contracting business. He started that from nothing, from scratch. And then he did what it took. And like one small thing at a time, one little victory at a time, he was able to, eventually sell that business. But even when he got into the real estate stuff, he did his research, right? He said that. He's like, I attended these seminars, these boot camps. I got educated. That's so important, right? And so like he did the work. And then the other thing that I thought was really interesting is like he clearly is a proponent of knowing the state of your flock, of your sheep, right? Like of knowing your finances, which is probably key to everything in your life. So just think of that. Like, we talked about it specifically here for business and for money, but like, dude, knowing what does your blood work look like? Are you in shape? What's your body fat? How's your relationship with your spouse and your kids? Like measuring all these things and staying on top of these things is how they improve. So I love that he talked about that. And that's totally a universal law that I think we can apply to everything in our life. And then I love how he kind of investigated different things. Like, so, and I also heard that he tried some different things too. Like, it's not like he got stuck in paralysis mode where he was just going to, he didn't go 10 years without buying his first note. He's like, I got some commercial buildings. I did some residential. Like he just tried some different things, got some experience. And then, as he discovered what it was like, he just adjusted his trajectory a little bit and his approach and his strategy. And this is where he's at now. It's not like he just, 10 years ago decided, I'm going to start a fund. Like he built, well, maybe, I don't know when he actually started it, but it wasn't just like the end goal. It was like trying different things, doing the work, seeing how it works, and then making decisions based on that feedback.
All right. And, the other aspect I want to point out here to the listeners is he didn't say it, but I think that's what he's talking about, because I think a lot of the people who are listening to this episode like, well, that's all good and dandy. It sounds good. But my question is, how do I know where to set that anchor based on that analogy? How do I know? How do I create this anchor? And a lot of this was revealed. Now, here's another cool thing for those Lifeonaires that we have here, that we're talking about constantly is, what your anchor could be? Your vision.
Yeah.
Your vision is part of your anchor that you want to look, because based on, let's say just in real estate industry, there's 30,000 ways to skin that cat. So
That's such
how
a weird
do you,
phrase, by the way. I don't know where that came.
well, right. I mean, there's
Go ahead. I threw you off. Sorry.
squirrel.
Squirrel.
That's a squirrel. See, I have a lot of animals
It's
in my
1,000 ways to
analogies.
skin a squirrel.
Cats
Yep.
and
Skin a squirrel.
squirrels,
All right.
and you know,
Continue.
I haven't gotten dogs yet. But anyway, but here's the thing. Notice when you look at your vision and you start questioning it, okay, which investment strategy, which model would work best for me to support my vision, then it starts to give you more clarity, because you might discover in that vision when you're writing the process, I don't like being bad, like saying no to people. I don't like being that landlord. So maybe that's not your investment strategy, right? Because you discovered a new process.
Yeah.
So that vision is so important to put it down. And I think he talks about it when it comes to those financial numbers. That's part of the vision. We talk about this at the 3-day Gear Life giveaways.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
so,
and you know, along with that, very closely related, he did say, like, pick something that, you know, you feel a connection to, or that you already know something about. Now, maybe you don't know anything about anything. That's fine. You can learn. But, you know, maybe who do you know that is doing something in that niche that you could tap on the shoulder and ask them about it? What do you feel more? You know, one thing that, Peter, we've run across at the Get a Life Getaways several times have been people that have this really heart for instance, like ex-military who are reintegrating into society, or people that have had, you know, a history of incarceration, and now they're working their way back into the community and want to be productive members of society. And so what do you have a connection with? Like, you know, Josh Gierak, one of our friends, has talked about this repeatedly. We asked him, Josh is a multifamily investor, has like, I don't know, 650, 700 units, a lot of units. And we asked him, like, what was it that attracted you to this? He's like, man, I just love providing quality housing for people, and I like communities, and like, so it was a natural fit for me, and like, so that really stuck with me and struck me, because pick something that you're gonna like, not just because the numbers work, because numbers aren't enough. Like, it has to tie into who you are as a person and what you're passionate about. And if you don't know yet, okay, well, try it. See if you can take a best guess and then give it a shot. And if it's great, then awesome. And if it's not, then try something else. I think that's important. And the other thing that he said that really stuck out to me is, like, if you do this business right and you treat people right, you'll be successful. And so that is just an underlying business principle, I think, that is so true. Like, the people who are the good guys, good girls, get ahead. Maybe it's not in the sprint, but in the long term, you can't outrun a bad reputation, you know, and if you screw people over, it will come back to you. And just do things right, do things on the up and up, do things with integrity, treat people the way you want to be treated. And I think that's the way you're successful in business.
All right. I mean, think about who you want to do business with, people that you like, right?
Yeah.
That they're good people. And by the way, know this, that's been conversation going for a long time. The bad news travels a lot faster than the good news.
Yeah.
So if you are bad reputation, you start doing those kinds of things.
Yeah.
News travels.
Yeah, totally. Man, I enjoyed this episode a lot. I'm really, I hope you guys get as much out of it as we did having this interview. If you liked it, please leave us a review, leave us a rating. Listen, if you haven't left us a review yet, or a rating yet, or a thumbs up, please do that for us. It would be super helpful. It would mean a lot. And this isn't just for our egos, all right? This isn't just because we want to feel better about ourselves, although it would make us feel better. But more so, it allows us to reach more people. And when they see that we have more ratings, they're going to listen. And guess what? That means we have a chance to change somebody else's life and make an impact on them, and make a positive influence on them as well. So please do that. Listen, hope you've enjoyed this. We will see you next week. If you haven't, don't forget to get into our private Facebook group. We will see you in there. Take care, everyone.